Salute, sons and daughters of the revolutionary soil. Tonight, we're going to have some fun. We're going to digest issues that are affecting our society. Let me put it to you. In South Africa, there was a time when we thought that when Jacob Zuma was removed as the president of South Africa, then things will start to unfold. However, that did not happen. Then Cyril Ramaphosa became the president of the country. After he was elected as the president of the country, what happened was that people had hope that perhaps their lives will change. But it was not the case that after removing Jacob Zuma, then things will then go well like honky-dory. There will not be crisis in South Africa. But then we were met about so many debacles. We were met about the issue of Eskom. Entities were not according to the way they were supposed to be. We could mention the entities like PRASA. We thought that all will be well, but that wasn't the case. So, however, this is a lesson that we must learn, all of us, that it is our voices, it is up to us, that we must never make a mistake, that we put our hopes to individuals. We need a voice, the voice which is ourselves, that we can emancipate ourselves from all forms of depression. So, tonight, I put it to you that it is about time that the voice of the voiceless be heard. In my studio, behind the iron curtains, I am your host, Mphomo Africa Dube. Thank you for allowing me to invade your homes, and I thank you very much. My guest tonight is none than only Ntate Herman Mashaba, the leader of the People's Dialogue. Those who know him, they know him as the former executive mayor of Johannesburg. Ntate Mashaba, thank you for gracing us. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you to the iron of the curtain. Behind the iron of the curtain, we're going to curtainarize you. I thank you, Ntate Mashaba.
Thank you very much, Mpo, and thank you so much to your colleagues for giving me this great opportunity to engage with people of South Africa. I'd actually like your opening remarks around when we had a change of leadership in the country. Some people obviously expected things to change, and I was one of those South Africans who was openly saying, you know what, there's just no way that the current president will really change because for me, as far as I'm concerned, he was part of the problem for the last 26 years.
Absolutely. Ntate Mashaba, please, my viewers would like to know one thing. What is the People's Dialogue? What is it all about? What are your objectives? What do you want to achieve?
Well, let me just really give you the historical context. As you're aware, I'm a former businessman for over 35 years. Started business in this country at the age of 22 in Ga-Rankuwa, and really I was fortunate enough that I was successful. By the time the new South Africa, the dawn of the new democracy, 27th of April 1994, voting for Mandela, and South Africans, all of us became a proud people. I never in my wildest dream ever thought I'd one day become a public servant. Politics was not really for me. I wasn't cut out for politics. But unfortunately, when I looked at the deterioration of my country, looking at what happened to Zimbabwe, I then said, you know what, I'm not running away. Running away is not an option. Yes. I then obviously spoke to my family and I said, no, you know what, guys, you either have to leave the country or I have to really participate. We live in a democratic dispensation. Fortunately enough, my family gave me the space, allowed me to really be part of finding a solution to our country's problem. And that's when the DA approached me to be the mayoral candidate for the 2016 local government elections. I accepted it after being persuaded. And I took this job actually to win, and I wanted to actually get outright majority. But fortunate enough, the voters of Johannesburg decided that we don't want any political party to get majority. Everyone,
Yes.
ANC got a big hiding in the city of Johannesburg. For me at the time, representing the DA, we got 38%. We had the biggest growth in the city of Johannesburg. But unfortunately, with 38% of council, you can't form government, so you need 50+1. So that's how a coalition arrangement was formed on the 22nd of August 2016. Became the first mayor outside the ANC since the dawn of our democracy. Biggest city in Johannesburg taken away from the ANC.
No, I must also tell the viewers as well that when President Cyril Ramaphosa ascended the seat after Jacob Zuma was ousted, there was that hope, like I said earlier. However, he had to deal with a lot of issues in relation to the transition, because there were factions. There was the Zuma faction, which became the NDZ faction, and as well as his faction. Then the country, because I'm speaking to you because the ANC is a ruling party. Now, as a ruling party nationally and other part across the country, I speak to you and because the people of South Africa had hope that that perhaps maybe Cyril will give them something new. However, it was not the case, because he had to deal with the transition and then also ensure that both factions that I've mentioned, they intertwine, which was not the case. He now has to look at his back, because there are those who want to oust him. And I'm of a view that at times you find that the people, as in the society, as in the community, is faced with with this kind of challenges where the president has to face in dealing with the issues of administration, emancipating them from all forms of depression to the best of his ability, because we have to be fair. Now, then where I'm coming from is the issue about the Zondo Commission. Then there was Agrizi. Agrizi was there, was unleashing certain things that, as a people, myself and yourself, you were perplexed. You went like, I could not believe this, that this is happening. And when people were saying, this other one is a sellout, and this one is a spy. Jacob Zuma, the former president, Ntate Jacob Zuma, was there as well. He was unleashing bombs. He said, no, I got a story to tell. And one of the people that he mentioned, he said, Ngwakura Mahlodi was a spy. He's a former spy. And then the public asked themselves questions that now we entrusted ourselves with the ANC as an administration, however, as a ruling party, however, was saying we remain perplexed. And then what is your view about the Zondo Commission? If I may ask you, Ntate Mashaba, before we zoom into the people's dialogue that you lead.
Well, I think the Zondo Commission is actually a mirror of what transpired in our country the last 26 years. It's not a movie, it's real. And fortunately enough, I had the privilege of being the executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg. the city that a lot of people were under impression that was a clean administration. I can tell people of this country that if you look at the Gupta looting of our state resources, the city of Johannesburg actually was at the center of this.
Yes.
And you remember, people didn't actually really know that the Guptas were only involved with Jacob Zuma. The city of Johannesburg was honestly at the center of state capture.
Yes.
And these issues will come out in the Zondo Commission if they do decide that they get the necessary funds to resume. But for me, it's actually the problem goes deeper than the Zondo Commission. I think for me, the Zondo Commission it's another way of inflicting pain on us as South Africans. We have the criminal justice system. Those cases of be the Bosasa or whatever, those cases don't belong to a commission of inquiry. They belong to an open court of law so that people can really be tested. If found guilty, then they must face the consequences. If they're innocent, then they must be set free. But I can assure you the city of Johannesburg, in the 3 years of being there, over 6,000 cases to the value of 34 billion rands under investigation. And I see the role of the Gupta family with the previous administration. It's actually an embarrassment for me as a South African as to really what happened to the consciousness of these political leaders, that people who were under impression are freedom fighters and are people that are going to really give them a better South Africa. Right now, unfortunately, under Cyril Ramaphosa's leadership, our president, unfortunately, things can only get worse because Cyril Ramaphosa, as the president of the ANC right now, or government, he's been part of the ANC NEC from day one, from 1994. He served under President Jacob Zuma as the deputy president since 2014. All these things that are being unleashed or exposed in the Zondo Commission, he had full knowledge of them. I mean, take an example, SA Airways. People are losing jobs today, and I'm one of the people that of the creditors. SA Airways owes me money. I'd booked their flight overseas before the COVID. And right now they're unable to pay me. They owe me close to 60,000 rands, and I need my money back. So I've got to hold the government accountable. Cyril Ramaphosa was the man entrusted by Jacob Zuma to really in charge of that. Eskom, look at the disaster that happened in Eskom. Who was in charge of Eskom? It wasn't Jacob Zuma. Jacob Zuma had put his deputy in charge of all these entities. So all this unraveling, President Cyril Ramaphosa was directly responsible for these entities entrusted by President Jacob Zuma.
Mr. Mashaba, if I may ask you again, I heard what you said, that the current president was the one who was able to deal with the mandate of economic emancipation. However, he failed according to you. But if I were to ask you, do you believe that he is the right man for the job to become the captain of this ship of South Africa? Do you think he can deliver following your own assessment in your own way to the best of your ability, sir?
Well, fortunate enough, Mpo, you can go into Google, you look at an open letter that I wrote, an opinion piece that I wrote a week before President Cyril Ramaphosa was elected by the ANC at Nazareth. Yes. I wrote an opinion piece to warn the ANC that President Cyril Ramaphosa is not the right man for this job. Secondly, a week before the elections, I warned people of South Africa, said to them that Jacob Zuma it's an honest man. And I remember I was addressing a press conference.
Are you not comparing apples and bananas?
No. I said to people of South Africa, I said, it is there also. Please Google it.
Yes.
The statement that I made in a full press conference,
Yes.
that if people of South Africa are going to elect this man as the president of the country, I said within 18 to 24 months' time, you'll be asking for Jacob Zuma back. And the media asked me, why do I make such a wild statement? I said, you know what? At least Jacob Zuma is an honest man. We know where his thieving was public knowledge.
Yes.
And whereas with Cyril Ramaphosa, I said that this man is not decisive enough to really take on the challenges. For him to have accepted in the first place to work with Jacob Zuma, who we knew at the time Jacob Zuma was a corrupt leader. You accept the responsibility to go and work side by side with the man. Already, really, for me, it says to me that there's no integrity. And when you don't have ethical leadership in a country, forget it. So I think for me, his association and acceptance to work under Jacob Zuma really said a lot to me, that we're dealing with a man with no ethical and integrity.
But people will still say that you and Cyril, you're under the same principle of access. In terms of one thing, that both of you are business people. And as business people, and people will ask you that, Mr. Mashaba, following the fader with what you just said, are you not yourself going to emulate him and fail the people of this country again, should you be elected in a very senior position? I do not want to...
No, I think people must understand in life, more especially in a democratic dispensation,
Yes.
civil society plays a very, very key role on deciding what type of leadership they elect. And one thing, people should not really make a mistake to put their lives on other people. Civil society has got the responsibility to give potential leaders an opportunity, but put them on terms. And if they fail you, next time vote them around. I just honestly, for me, if you look at it from a logical point of view,
Yes.
why people voted for the ANC for the last 26 years, it's beyond human imagination. Because here you've got a political party that is dismally failing you, dismally, spectacularly failing you, but you kept voting them into power. But also, on the other hand, the ANC, yes, accept the fact that they've been losing support dramatically as well, losing 2-3 million votes from one election to the next, and they're still going to lose some more. The biggest challenge we are facing as a country are the people who don't go out and vote, who are saying we don't have an alternative. And that is actually the biggest risk to our democracy, because you can imagine if people don't go out and vote, like what happened in 2019 last year. Just under 19 million South Africans didn't go out and vote, as compared to the 17 million. And so ANC was voted by just under 9 million, just under 10, just over 9 million people. So, and you can imagine ANC will still lose another 3-4 million come next elections. They're going to be sitting with 5-6 million voters. Now you can imagine if people don't go out there and vote, and we end up with ANC with 6, 7 or whatever the people, but actually ruling us, it'll be a very dangerous situation. And I think before I give you another opportunity, yes, I want South Africans to be aware. Look at the current president. He's still surrounded exactly by the very same people who were responsible the last 26 years for the destruction, yes, of our country. In his cabinet, at Luthuli House, in Parliament. All the people
but
who...
does he have a choice, though?
What do you mean?
Because of the functions.
It's precisely the issue of decisive leadership. What do you mean? People voted... actually, if you look at Ramaphosa...
I have a question that I need to ask you.
Yes.
Based on what you're saying, because it's very imperative and potent as well. If you were to wear his boots, Mr. Mashaba, what were you going to do if you were to wear his shoes? Because if I understand you correctly, you are saying that there's a need for people to emancipate themselves from intellectual bankruptcy and entitlement, and also becoming voting calm. I mean, voting cows, and cease to become what is unbecoming by just voting for somebody, or also following just an organization. So I'm asking you, if you were to wear his boots or wear his gloves, what were you going to do differently?
No, well, what I would do differently is the fact that I would not want to be associated with the ANC. I mean, there's just no way that any self-respecting, moral person would want to be in the ANC. Honestly, I would not really be in that environment, because there's no way that you can change that corrupt system and general leadership. It's impossible. So I think to start off with, when you start on the wrong footing, you make the wrong decision right at the beginning, forget it. You've really set yourself up for failure. It is for that reason when Cyril was elected, was prepared to serve under Jacob Zuma, that this man has set himself up for failure, because there's no way that he can change this corrupt system. So I would not really want to really be associated with the ANC, because of obviously the level of corruption that is within the system.
Just before we go to an ad break, if I may ask you again, what would you advise the people of this country to do in the next coming local and national elections? And we will take this issue again when we digest it even further, because there was a ruling of the Constitutional Court where it was then declared that the IEC rule was invalid. It was unconstitutional.
No, it was an electoral
Act. Yes, Electoral Act. That's hence I say the IEC, which is it's also part and parcel of its Electoral Act. I'm saying, following that it can happen that individuals themselves, they can now stand and say, I raise my hand. I want you to salute me. Then I can lead you. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's a very, very important milestone for our country. Look, you can stand as an independent at local government level, but you could not at provincial and national. That's what the Concord ruling was all about, to say. The Parliament needs to really revise legislation to make sure that if anyone wants to stand as an independent at province or national level, they must be allowed. I think it's a positive step, but I think we need to go deep into this, where we get majority of public representatives not to be elected by political parties behind closed doors. Public reps must be elected by the people before they actually go to elections. They must campaign and make sure that we don't end up with people with criminal records behind them. We find them there in our parliament. You can imagine right now how many people who are supposed to be in jail are in parliament, formulating policies for the country. I mean, and this is known by the whole world. What is really happening in South Africa. So we're not in good space as a country, but I think we as the People's Dialogue, I'm happy to really share with you and the viewers out there, we are going to really change the system with or without constitutional amendments. We are launching a political party in August. Our public representatives are not going to be elected by us behind closed doors. If you decide to become, you want to become a ward councillor for the 2021 local government elections, what we do is in every ward, we will invite those who wants to stand for public office. We'll subject them to the community of that ward to decide who's the best candidate to be a ward councillor. That decision is not going to be taken by us as a party behind closed doors.
Now, before we go to again, I must emphasize, before we go to an ad break, what makes you guarantee that the People's Dialogue will then be peculiar from all this brouhaha that, you know, there's a contamination because you speak highly about corruption. Because you can't change a person. That like people, they say, umuntu anyeke confirm. And you cannot trust a person because you do not know what a person can think like, even if you trust or you entrust yourself in the individual. So I'm saying to you, what makes you different and peculiar from any other platform and any other organization? Because I can hear now, which will speak just after the ad break, that it's going to move from being a people's dialogue, then later on to become an organization. Just in a minute, just a little bit to clarify that issue.
Well, I think human beings must understand that, you know, we're fortunate as compared to other species. You know, God has given us this little brain for us to navigate human challenges. And never entrust your life to the next person.
Absolutely.
You know, I always keep telling people that I give credit to my grandfather, who taught me an early stage of my life to never actually take what... I must trust people on the basis of what they do, not what they say.
Yes.
Give them a chance, listen to them, but ultimately judge them on what they do. And I also want people to judge me on those bases, not what I say. Yes, give me a chance to listen to me.
Yes.
But ultimately, judge me, what I said and what I do. And if I don't really meet your expectations, look for someone else, because that's what I do. I give you an opportunity,
Yes.
Tempo. I listen to you,
Yes.
but ultimately I'm going to judge you on what you do. And I can tell you, if what you say and what you do are diametrically different, and you are doing this in a malicious manner, I can tell you our relationship is over. And I
Yes.
believe that's how you look at successful people in the world have operated.
Yes.
They don't operate on the basis of naivety, where you're saying, you know what, Mpho is my role model. In the event that Mpho lets me down, I commit suicide. I will never commit suicide because no one is a role model to me. That I've got role models that I look up to. But one thing for sure, if they err, I'm not going to commit suicide because of them.
Absolutely. We're going to leave it here. Ntate Mashaba, is interesting for what you're saying. The viewers, welcome again to those who were at home, who were late. Behind the iron curtains, I am your host, Mpho Africa Dube. We're going for an ad break. Salute! I'm with Ntate Herman Mashaba. I thank you for now. Let's
The power to defeat coronavirus is in our hands. Play your part by following these 5 basic precautions. Regularly wash your hands with soap and water or sanitizer for at least 20 seconds. Maintain a safe distance of at least 1.5 meters from people around you. Wear a cloth mask at all times when in public. Always cough or sneeze into your elbow or tissue. If you're an employer, screen your employees daily for symptoms of COVID-19 and where appropriate, refer for testing. Working together, we can beat the coronavirus. A message from government.
Challenge your ordinary. Experience the extraordinary.
Not only the government, the municipality here has had no plan.
Now, I believe that my peace is my most valuable asset.
Absolutely beautiful! This is exactly what I was looking for! DJ Khaled!
It is a day to celebrate.
We're ready for action.
I like it when it's nice and soft. Yeah, that is nice.
How was it like growing up in Nigeria? Yes, sir, you know what it is.
Feeling is there that, you know, you're doing something special.
Stop being so dramatic, Mira.
You should just be what you want to be.
Experience the extraordinary with StarSat.
The coronavirus outbreak.
Experience the extraordinary.
Tremendous waste and tremendous fraud. Mexico is, in fact, you will soon find out.
It is a day to celebrate.
We don't approve at all what's going on.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily unusual.
Challenge your ordinary.
Not only the government, the municipality here has had no plan.
Experience the extraordinary with StarSat. Experience the extraordinary.
Feeling is there that you're doing something special.
Have you lost it? Move!
Stop being so dramatic, Mira.
Challenge your ordinary.
Why don't you start a dance class?
Experience the extraordinary with StarSat.
The power to defeat coronavirus is in our hands. Play your part by following these 5 basic precautions. Regularly wash your hands with soap and water or sanitizer for at least 20 seconds. Maintain a safe distance of at least 1.5 meters from people around you. Wear a cloth mask at all times when in public. Always cough or sneeze into your elbow or tissue. If you're an employer, screen your employees daily for symptoms of COVID-19 and where appropriate, refer for testing. Working together, we can beat the coronavirus. A message from
Thank you again for listening to us, viewers, for watching us. Welcome back to Behind the Iron Curtain. I'm with Ndate Herman Mashawa, the leader of the People's Dialogue. Ndate Herman Mashawa, I have to ask you a very serious question. I think my viewers and everybody have been waiting for this for quite some time. It's not like I want to ambush you or anything else.
You're most welcome to you. You're the host.
But I have to ask you, because at the end of the day, it's very important that I need to ask you this. Tell us, why did you leave, for example, your position as the executive mayor of Joburg? And secondly, why did you leave the Democratic Alliance? Because there were times where people thought that you were doing well, even though there were those who said that you are an EF mayor towards the end. So I need to ask you, Tate Mashawa, like, what made you to leave? You know, and were you discontent because perhaps your comrade, Musi Maimane, Ntate Musi Maimane, because as an African, I'm told to respect people and say Ntate. You felt that he was being marginalized, and also perhaps maybe you felt that maybe the DA was not a vehicle that could navigate you from where you want to be, because each and every person has got a dream, and then a man without a dream is as good as perished. So I'm asking you, tell us what happened?
Well, I think let me just try and really find a way to really summarize it. What happened is, you remember when the DA approached me to be the mayoral candidate, after taking a DA membership after the 2014 elections, when Jacob Zuma was given 62% support by the voters. I mean, this whole thing really made me really cross with the country. But I felt, you know what, being cross is not good enough.
Oh, is that
You've
what
got to move.
inspired you?
Yeah, that's what inspired. And then I took, for the first time in my life, to take a membership of a political party. And then obviously, I think DA thought I had a political ambition. When the 2016 election, local government elections were approaching, I was asked to take over this job, and I said, my goodness, where do I start? But eventually, when I realized they had no one to really do the job, I threw in my head, started campaigning. I had no clue what to do, but I said, you know what, if this, all these other people who are really so corrupt can do this job, I can do it much better. And campaign, and you remember
because you thought people were corrupt, that's what you say.
Oh no, the people, I mean, our country is one of the most corrupt governments in the world. I mean, it's a fact. It's not really something that created by me. South Africans know, the world knows. South Africa in just 26 years, we've become
but
one of the most
opinion.
corrupt.
That's
no, it's not opinion. No, it's a fact. South Africa, is, please check with the World Bank, IMF, all the rating agencies. Ask them. South Africa ranks as one of the most corrupt countries.
Or one of the most corrupt, but not.
No,
corrupt.
one of the most. It's,
Okay.
you know, if you want to do business as a business person, you look at countries that are corrupt. And South Africa, it's actually one of those. That's why we don't really see investment. That's why we regard it as junk status.
Okay.
And accepted the responsibility with the DA. 22nd of August 2016, elected by a multi-party coalition, 7-way, including the EFF. You know, and really very dreadful moment for me, because the EFF and I, from an ideological point of view, we come from two different worlds. I mean, I believe in free markets. I believe in a capitalist system. I believe in individual freedom. So, you know,
so you are a capitalist?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's why I've even written a book called Capitalist Crusader, because that system gave me the freedom that I enjoyed today.
Yeah, it's good to hear people who are profound, because at times people want to hide. And I'm glad that you are behind the iron curtains where we deal with issues of profoundness. And then you are profound. You are saying it like you're a capitalist.
I've written a book about it, called
Yes.
Capitalist Crusader.
Yes.
It's on the shelf all over the world. You know, I'm one of the crusaders. But what is important is for people to understand, what do we mean by capitalism? What is meant by socialism? Because I've honestly disdain socialist and communist. I really dread, I don't want any association with such people.
Yes.
But what type of the free market system do we want?
Sure.
It has to really involve social justice.
Yes.
Because if you look at us, particularly as black people, for the 300 years of colonialism and apartheid, including 26 years of ANC, we are the most unequal society in the world. So we have to really look at what inspired me to go into business, despite the fact that the apartheid government said that you're black, you can't go into business. And I decided, anyway, I'm going to do it. And 27th of April 1994, I expected to see an explosion of black talent. Yes. Because you can imagine, if we could run successful businesses when we had a government that was against us, I thought when we have got a government that is going to nurture and create a fair, equal system, black people are going to excel.
Sure.
Unfortunately, ANC destroyed the black entrepreneurship, literally destroyed it by these tenderpreneurs. If you can really do a study, I know there are lots of people who are doing studies to really look at black entrepreneurship pre-1994 and black industrialists and entrepreneurs post. Unfortunately, it was destroyed by this patronage network of the ANC. So I thought that the DA is a party committed to non-racialism, creating one nation, and looking at social justice. Because when I took over, and I was really lucky, because as much as I was worried, I realized later on that
you were worried.
I was worried that
joining the DA.
No, not worried that no.
Yes.
Taking over the administration, relying on the EFF support. I said, I dreaded that. I said, how are those people going to support the free market system and so forth? Only to discover that the DA, literally from day one, they were the most difficult partner, because what my approach was that I remember on the day after my election, during the press conference, I made a statement that the success of this government that I'm going to lead is going to depend on negotiations. It's going to depend on respecting all the political parties. So I did not really have the luxury of being arrogant that we're a DA government. We're a multi-party government. And my approach was that I had to incorporate all the parties' manifestos to ensure particularly that we bring justice to the millions of our people failed by the ANC government in the city of Johannesburg. And unfortunately, the DA literally refused to support some of the pro-poor policies, and the EFF supported me. And I ended up being called EFF mayor. Was one of the most unique situations.
I remember in some council, they gave you the EFF T-shirt. Bearing, it was the EFF.
No, it was the ANC.
Is it?
Yeah, no, it was the ANC because...
but they called you the EFF mayor.
No, because what had happened is when ANC realized behind closed doors with some of the...
behind
DA
the iron curtains.
Behind
the iron curtains.
With some of the DA people. Because obviously a DA will always... celebrate what I was doing for poor communities.
Oh, yes.
And DA didn't like it. And ANC saw this opportunity and tried to obviously to create a divide. One day before council brought in an EFF T-shirt, gave it to me in front of the DA, people knowing that it will create further
How was
division.
that moment when that happened?
I think that for me, I laughed at it because I think it was a very childish way of dealing with the reality. I was committed, and I'm committed to social justice, and our political party that we are going to form, we are unapologetic about this. The social justice is one of the core values that we stand by. We are not going to compromise on it. We are committed to non-racialism. We are committed to free market system. We are committed to the rule of law. We are committed to the electoral reform, where we want one day, I want my grandchildren to be able to elect their public representatives directly at all levels of government.
But Mr. Mashaba, before we go into the people's dialogue, I reserve a right again to ask you this question. You know, the way people were saying, and that I need to know, firstly, that were you happy just after ascending that seat via the ticket of DA mostly, and then as well as EFF? But I want to concentrate here about the issue of DA. DA, you know, if you remember, there was what we call the New National Party. And then we know where the New National Party comes from the National Party. And it is a party that is being associated with the segregation regime, with apartheid. And black people were marginalized. And I'm asking myself, what was going through your mind? Because I heard what you said, but it could be the fact that maybe perhaps you trusted them, that as the New National Party and then what we call the Democratic Alliance, perhaps they will then diffuse and eject themselves from their DNA, which it's a well-documented thing of what they did. So what was going through your mind when you start to see that this is a different kind of an animal? It's not even a dinosaur, but it's something very different of what you wanted to do. Because I heard what you said, and I believe in what you're saying, that it is not really what I wanted, it's something else.
Look, let me tell you something, Mpo and the viewers out there. One thing I can guarantee you that majority of DA members are good human beings.
Yes.
Much better by far
Yes.
than ANC.
Yes.
Great human beings. That's why I've committed that in the event that we've got to go into government, we've got to go into a coalition, I have the ANC and the DA. I'll go into bed with the DA anytime because majority of their people are good human beings, black and white. They're great human beings committed to public service. Unlike the ANC you battle to find, honestly, a single person that I can say from the ANC is committed to public service.
But those are your thoughts.
I don't think. No, it's not. This I'm our facts.
Your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm our facts. I'm sure. I won't really. I won't fill in. Whereas in the DA, lots of good people. Unfortunately, the DA, unfortunately, Musi allowed it to be hijacked, be taken over by radical elements who did not really want to see transformation in the country. And that's when I really got cross. And the way they connive on this project, this malicious project, behind closed doors. And that's when I came to really know about it and informed Musi about it, and unfortunately did not act on time to really.
Do you know there was a time in Tate Mashaba where, if you look at some few clips, this way back, it was in the National Assembly where they call it the Agus House. You know what happened? The then President Jacob Zuma, I'm sure you're aware of that clip, he warned Musi. And the way, because we are speaking about him, he said, Musi, I warn you now that I'm not a Sangoma or anything, I'm not trying to be prophetic. But one day, you know what's going to happen? They're gonna use you, and they're gonna dump you, like as if you never existed anywhere. So when you speak to him, Tate Mashaba, obviously, like you said, you confirmed that you were discontent and about certain aspects. Although you are saying that the DA it's got good people, majority of good people. Then you were able to see and that this is not right. What would you advise your followers and who are in the People's Dialogue? In fact, I need you to speak about the People's Dialogue right here, right now, so that the viewers can know what is the People's Dialogue all about.
Okay, look, the project was conceived when I made an announcement on the 21st of October last year at the press conference announcing my resignation from the DA, and I gave the reasons why I'm resigning from the DA.
It was not because of Helen Zille.
No, it was.
It was because
no.
of her.
You remember a few weeks before Helen was elected as the federal chair, I made it clear. I issued a statement to the DA, her. And I said to the DA people, I said, if you elect this person as your federal chair,
because it was
I'm
like,
out.
Yeah, it was like.
So I warned them. I said, it's not like something.
Yeah, it was like DA was suffering from leadership bankruptcy.
Yes. So what I'm saying, I didn't take them by surprise. Maybe, perhaps they didn't believe me that really what I meant. I said, if Helen Zille is brought back into the leadership of this party,
then you vamos.
Then I'm out. And unfortunately, on the 20th, that Sunday, she was elected, and I immediately issued a press statement. And the following morning, I resigned.
So you felt betrayed by the system of DA?
Yeah, well, I think I realized the people behind
because they personified the person.
This new leadership of the DA was going to really take us back to the days of apartheid, and I did not want to really be associated with right-wing elements, white people who believe that blacks are only there to really be used as and when they feel like that. And I did not want to be associated with such people because I believed when I joined the DA that all of us were committed to a non-racial South Africa. We are committed to social justice and so forth. That will take care of the ills of the past. But once they started rejecting that, that's when I really felt betrayed. But at the end of the day, I said, Heaven, you can move on. You've got choices in life, and you move on. And obviously, there was an outcry for people to say, start your own party. And I said, where do I begin? I said, let me actually run the second CODESA. You know, let me get South Africans involved in shaping the future of this country and really also gauging to see if I do have the necessary support. And when I discussed this with when I was putting together the team, I said, guys, for me, 500,000 supporters will be a good base.
Sure.
And I was really surprised, end of February, because we launched this project on the 6th of December to run until the end of February this year. 2.4 million submissions. I was expecting, I would have been happy with
2.4 million
2.4 million submissions.
Aesthetic.
Of the 2.4, 125,000 of them giving very comprehensive submission, 10 to 12 pages long, one person. That's when I realized this is something. And also what was really positive about this, what were the core values of what this 2.4 million people wanted. People are committed, as I said, to non-racialism. That we must not take it for granted. We need a government that is going to drive that South Africa become a non-racial society. Committed to free market system, where we want the private sector, particularly small businesses, to drive our economy. Social justice, very crucial. We cannot live in a society where we are the most unequal society in the world. We need to drive this country so that 15, 20 years down the line, the biggest percentage of our population are the middle class. Are people committed to the rule of law? Why allow the criminals to really be in our parliament and in our government? There's got to really be the rule of law. We're sitting, suffering right now with this violence against women and children.
Yes.
Every single year, I mean, including even last night I was listening to the president. The president was speaking as if he's an activist, he's not the president of the country. People want to see the rule of law. Lastly, people are committed to the electoral system.
Sure.
And right now, as I'm talking to you, we're engaging professionals. Actually, on the way coming here, I was talking to one of my guys who was telling me over the weekend I'll release the statement where the quality and the number of people who have volunteered to work with us to formulate our blueprint of our political party, so that we bring in the right type of education, so that we come out with the rule of law that the South Africans must feel free in their country. We cannot have a borderless country. We need a country with very strong borders, but at the same time encourage people of the world to come to South Africa. So I've got experts that we've already started engaging with. This whole week, my policy team is engaging the youth. Youth giving us input. Next week, we're going to deal with the rule of law. In fact, former chief of police, David Tembe, is actually on that panel to really work with some of the best brains in the law enforcement agencies to assist us to make sure that South Africa can really be one day a safe country for our residents.
I also, you were giving a speech, I must tell you, whether you were campaigning, but you sound very profound. But I need to ask you something again. Tell me, South Africa now is in what we call junk status. You as a business person with the expertise that you have, how are you going to, should you be elected as a president? What are the things that you're going to do to emancipate us from this junk status with your expertise as a business person?
The only way you can get your country back to a credit rating that is acceptable to the investment community, you've got to have policy certainty.
Sure.
This whole relationship, we need really, restructure, the policy restructure in terms of predictability, where people can. This relationship of the ANC, COSATU, and the South African Communist Party, it's actually toxic for our country. You cannot have government that is in bed with Labour. We need Labour without any doubt. I'm a big supporter of Labour, but it must be independent of government, so that as government, when you save the entire South Africans, whether they voted for you or not, they belong to unions or not. But whereas right now, if you look at President Ramaphosa, it's at the mercy of trade unions and the so-called communists.
But
at the same time, they're the biggest one.
how are we going to survive without factories? Because a lot of people are saying, look, we have factories that are being subjected to what we call white elephant. You know, I've been talking to a whole lot of people who are saying it can't be, because we have got factories that are not being utilized. You know, they're not being utilized. And we don't understand why government is allowing that to happen, because...
Well, let me sorry to interject you. I think it's because ANC over the last 26 years with COSATU, they went around closing one factory of business after the other, particularly small businesses. And this was in their interest, because if you look at all these ANC people who have made money today are billionaires, they made money from big business being partners to big business. Small businesses, they were not on the agenda, went down from closing one business after the other. And the poor members of the trade union organization.
I also spoke to this gentleman. He's from, he said he's from Bakoni still and stuff. He said, I'm worried. I want to give back to the country, but then I have a factory, but I'm not utilizing it. And I don't know. How are you gonna give an advice to that?
Well, we need to relax our labor legislation.
Yes.
That must be encouraging to the investment community, but at the same time, make sure that our people are not exploited. So that's really very key. That's the only way you can attract the investment in your country. You need safety. No one is going to invest and come and live in a country where you know that your wife can really be raped or you can really be killed. So you need public safety. Very, very crucial. People don't want to really come and live in a country where you have such inequality, where you've got very rich people, very poor people, and you know. So and the majority of the people,
the richer become wealthy.
Yes.
And the poor becomes
so
poorer.
Once you can actually have a labor regime that is fair to particularly small businesses and encourage foreign direct investments, come out with incentives. I mean, you know, I was born and raised in Amanskral, that Babelekhi industrial area. I mean, that industrial area is how old? Just over 40 years old.
Yes.
I mean, when I grew up in Amanskral, you know, people who did not work are those who did not want to work. There was hardly unemployed. When I grew up, anyone who wanted to work worked. Yes, were our people exploited? Without any doubt.
Sure.
But my sisters, I was brought up by my sisters working in Babelekhi, earning 3 rands a week. But I can tell you there was stability in our families. I respected my sisters, because you know what? Every Monday morning they went to work. Friday they come out with their 3 rands or 4 rands that they earn, buy groceries and everything like that. Right now in this country, we've got kids who are now 15, 20 years old. They've never seen a single parent waking up, providing for them, because ANC government created this dependency, because you must understand the ANC were trained by the Russians, the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union was about control. And when they took over, the plan is to really make sure that people are poor, because when people are poor, they're dependent on the state for them to survive. They become voting cows and cattle.
Just that point that you're saying, I'm actually worried, and even my viewers will understand where I'm coming from. I'm worried with the fact that in the Temashab, it seems like we're creating a dependent society. We're not creating a society that is independent, that can stand on its own. Why? Because the administration always talk about all these opportunities. However, I'm worried with the fact that they get grants. You see, the danger of grants is that young people get grants. When they get grants is that you find a girlfriend.
No, it destroys your self-esteem.
Yes, I want to come to
and
this.
a human being without self-esteem.
Yes, I want to come to
it's
this
very
narrative
dangerous.
just a little bit. What you find that there's a situation where the most impoverished areas, people, the only entertainment that people have, it's booze and sex. And then they make babies, and after making babies, they then go get grants. And then also, secondly, the point that I'm raising is that there's an issue where people get free houses, and they think it's a norm to just to get a free house. Why don't we create a system where people can become independent and then work for themselves and not depend on government? This thing is not sustainable. What are you going to do? Or what is your advice if you were elected being president? Because we're not here just to push you as a president. I'm just saying.
You know, one thing that you must understand, for our people to advance, the first thing that you must do is to really make sure that you give them the best education ever from the time they are born. Make sure that 15, 20 years down the line, right now the ANC 26 years, we should really be having lots of professional doctors, lawyers, accountants, and so forth. I mean, we've dismally failed. We had to rely on actually sending our kids to Cuba to go and study medicine instead of building our own universities. You can imagine, I mean, how much it costs to train someone in Cuba. The first year, our kids need to learn the Spanish before they can even go into education. In a country where there's no medication, you know, so you can imagine if we had taken that money, build our own universities where we can train doctors. Right now in South Africa, there's a quota on how many doctors we can train. Nurses, nurses trained by the apartheid government, taken over by the English, the Middle East, Australia, and then Canada. And today, what we are allowing fly-by-night the schools to train our kids to be nurses and so forth. So education for me is key. We've got to encourage building of strong family foundations, because there's no way we can ever make it if we are not going to build strong family foundations, because that's the beginning of the success of any nation. And right now, if you look at the type of people who are in our leadership, is family values important to them? Absolutely not interested in that. So these are things that we need to really build. As I said, we need to have an economic climate that encourages investments in our country, allow small businesses in particular not to be subjected to labor regimes that destroys them on a daily basis. They don't even give them a chance to start. So those are just some of the key aspects. And as I said to you, public safety. You need South Africa to be a safe country where people can really come and invest here, come and holiday here. People are too scared to come to South Africa, even before COVID. They were too scared because South Africa, our murder rate, our rape rate, the rates are just phenomenal. Sometimes we wish you were just in a bad dream.
So just before we go to an ad break again, I need to ask you something. You touched based on the issue of COVID-19. It started as a epidemic, then now it becomes a pandemic, like globally. So, in your own way, there were a lot of conspiracies. Because behind the Iron Curtain, we talk about things that people do not think that we're going to digest and talk about. I'm asking you now, and our viewers will also be happy for me that I asked the question, is that there are a lot of conspiracy theories. How come the whole world, Mr. Mashawa, you as a business person, to this day, 3 months down later, we don't have something to remedy the situation? I don't even want to entangle myself with what we call vaccines and whatsoever. I'm saying, I find it very strange. I will still use and abuse the word. I find it very peculiar that we do not have a cure for this COVID-19. People are dying all over the world. And how is it possible? Like, for example, there were some people even talking about Lengana, which is, they call it an indigenous language, indigenous
We grew up.
remedy.
We grew
Yes.
up drinking that stuff
it's an
during
indi-
winter.
Yes.
It was a cure for flu and
Yes.
whatever. you know.
Why, for example, they say in Madagascar they're utilizing that because it's our indigenous knowledge. That's the term I wanted to use. In Madagascar they're using it, and if you go to other chemists, I don't want to mention the name. What chem? Because they need to advertise before I say. I'm saying pharmacies, you find that they have that on their shelves. All of a sudden, we cannot find a remedy to the situation. What is your take on that, that sometimes we overlook the indigenous knowledge that we have as Africans?
Look, I think for this it's not as simple as that. I think that is why I spoke earlier on around education. We should really be having some of the best scientists in the world. Unfortunately, this coronavirus, no one all over the world, even the most advanced countries in the world, like United States, the British, I heard this morning there was something to do with, looks like they can assist people who are on ventilation and so forth. But in terms of the vaccine, unfortunately, I'm not a scientist, and I don't have access to scientists because I'm not the president of the country. But obviously, if you're a president, you then obviously surround yourself with the best advice in terms of the medicine or whatever aspect of society that you need to really face as a president. However, I feel really, for me, really very disappointed with the leadership of our country regarding this approach on this.
Must we listen to the World Health Organization only because, like I'm worried, Tate Mashaba, that we're not saying that Lengana is a cure, and you know it, but it's something that it can be used as a precaution to diffuse.
I don't think I'll agree with you. I don't know. I'm not a. Yeah, we used to drink that, but whether it can treat coronavirus, that's something that will need scientists and medical professionals.
No, I know. Yeah. I'm only saying that scientifically as not being proven, isn't it? I'm saying that. Why? Because I'm not the first one to raise this matter. There is somebody who raised this matter. There are people who raised this matter before, and you know it yourself. I'm asking you that. Would you consider it? In fact, let's go to the ad break. We'll come and digest this issue and talk about it. Behind the Iron Curtain, we're going to come back. Sons and daughters of the revolutionary soil. Salute for now.
The power to defeat coronavirus is in our hands. Play your part by following these 5 basic precautions. Regularly wash your hands with soap and water or sanitizer for at least 20 seconds. Maintain a safe distance of at least 1.5 meters from people around you. Wear a cloth mask at all times when in public. Always cough or sneeze into your elbow or tissue. If you're an employer, screen your employees daily for symptoms of COVID-19 and where appropriate, refer for testing. Working together, we can beat the coronavirus. A message from government.
Challenge your ordinary. Experience the extraordinary.
Not only the government, the municipality here has had no plan.
Now, I believe that my peace is my most valuable asset.
Absolutely beautiful! This is exactly what I was looking for! DJ Khaled!
It is a day to celebrate.
We're ready for action.
I like it when it's nice and soft. Yeah, that is nice.
How was it like growing up in Nigeria? Yes, sir, you know what it is.
Feeling is there that, you're doing something special.
Stop being so dramatic, Mira.
You should just be what you want to be.
Experience the extraordinary with StarSat.
We're back again. We're live behind the Iron Curtain. I salute you, sons and daughters of the revolutionary soil. I am still in robust debate with Ndate Herman Mashaba. Earlier on, we were just talking about the World Health Organization. I know that you don't want to entangle yourself about Lingana, but just in just some few minutes, do you think something was done enough to then engage with various aspects? Because there's this thing that perhaps sometimes traditional remedies are being overlooked because they are not scientifically proven. And what would you advise? Because at this point of time, we need everything that can be able to assist everybody. And then, yes, I agree that perhaps maybe certain things needs to be tested so that people don't get killed unnecessarily, because there were some people also who just drank something, during this lockdown. There were people who manufactured their own alcohol. And then they thought they were drinking gin.
You don't want to live you don't want to live in a society like that in this modern age when government has got the ability to really be able to really train scientists, proper doctors, and so forth, so that when you are faced with this type of challenges, that you can rely on them. But you cannot just really rely on my own personal assessment, because I used to drink Lingana when I grew up because my parents couldn't afford to take me to the doctor. Did it work? I don't know. But will it work for coronavirus? Honestly, I would not personally take a chance to rely on that until such time that it can be proven beyond any reasonable doubt that it's a cure and there are no side effects. And South Africa, upon taking over our new government, those are areas where government should ensure that we train our black people to really be experts in certain fields. And we failed. You look at the University of the North, Teflop, where I went in 1979, and I was then for 1.5 years. And I look at that university, how it has been really destroyed. And
because it produced people like
I thought 1994 would come, that our government was going to invest heavily in particularly this black institution, because the white ones were already well functioning. But we needed resources, get the best professors in this university, so that my kids and your kids must say, look, you know what, instead of going to Wits, I want to go to Teflop University. What they focused on was to change names. Look at Medunsa. How many times have they changed the name of that university, which was used to produce some of our best doctors? I'm sure even right now they must be already thinking of changing the name. You don't improve people's lives by changing names of buildings and streets. If you want to new names, build new roads, build new hospitals, build new clinics, and you can call them whatever name. Yes, some of the names you had to remove them, like the Ferrour.
Yeah,
but certain names, honestly,
because they are
like Baragwanath Hospital, was there a reason for government with such limited resources to change it? You look at Meduns, this I sent to you. How many times have we changed the name of that institution? And every time you change the name, it doesn't come for free. It's a very expensive exercise.
But I need to ask you something. You know, just when you and I were talking now, something just comes and say, South Africa. South Africa, do we have a name for our country? You know why I'm saying this? You go to Zambia, you go to Zimbabwe, you go to Swaziland, you go to Lesotho, you go to Botswana, and then you go to North Africa, and then the Central Africa. You know, we got Nigeria, and you know, we've got South Sudan and whatsoever. They got names, those countries. Why are we South Africa? Why can't we just be Mozambique for sure? Like that's what people are saying, like Mozambique. We don't have a name. It shows that maybe perhaps at times maybe we have a problem with our identity. Do you find us okay with the name of South Africa?
Well, in the current economic climate since 1994, with limited resources, because unfortunately as human beings, we'll always have, I think it depends on your priorities. There are certain things you can live with and certain things you can not live. But now, tell me right now, if we've got to really spend money to change the name of this country, you can imagine the cost implications. When we don't have doctors, we don't have lawyers, we don't have universities. Would you build universities so that you can have in 20 years? No, I'm saying is if I'm giving you 100 rands today, you've got two options of changing the name of the country or training black kids to be accountants, lawyers, and so forth in 25 years. Where will you use that 100 rands? You've got 100 rands. That's all you've got.
There are also
those are decisions that we've got to really then make. Are you then saying, look, I'm going to use this 100 rands to change the name of the country?
But it's not a stupid question that I asked.
It's not a stupid. It's the choices that people make.
It's an intellectually pregnant question that will give birth to sanity.
Yeah, but then you can imagine now you've deprived an opportunity to train your people so that 20 years, 25 years down the line, the day when this country's unemployment is 5% and so you are growing at 5, 6, 7, 10% growth, that's when you've got a luxury to do such things. Right now, this country does not even have money to feed our children and our people. Right now, you know how many millions of people today slept without a meal in this country? You know how many? People are losing jobs. This country, by end of this year, we've got a chance of having up to 60% unemployment rate. So now, you've got limited resources. Are you not going to take that money to kickstart the economic growth? You've got to take tough decisions. So if we're going to be taking decisions of changing names instead of educating our people and getting the economy to work so that unemployment must be even under 10%, you know. But right now, we're sitting at, before COVID, we're sitting at 39% unemployment. 10.4 million South Africans were unemployed. National Treasury, SARS, Stats SA, they're all confirmed. This country is going to lose between 3 and 7 million people end of this year. So now, what I'm saying is now, if you've got, I'll give you 100 rands, what are you going to do? Are you going to change the name of the country, or are you going to put this money into steering the economy so that you can bring unemployment down?
Okay, cool. Fair enough. Let me ask you another question. What do you make of black consciousness? For example, there is there's a movement because of the current political dynamics. It started in USA because of the police suppressing black Africans or African Americans, but I call them black people, my brothers and your brothers, our sisters. I'm saying it is about time that people must not allow such things to happen to them.
Mpo, let me tell you something. We sympathize. I sympathize and strongly so with my African American people. But at the same time, I'm in a country that does not care about black lives. Right now, I've got a case of Lily Mines that's costing me a fortune with their legal fees.
Take us through that, please.
4 years ago, remember a container went down a mine with 3 of our fellow South Africans. 4 years ago. Over a year ago, families of the affected, of the deceased, affected miners who've never been paid in the community of Barberton, they are camping next to the mine. They want this container out.
Sure.
Our own government, even this morning, I wrote a letter to DMR because the families and the affected miners, they've taken up upon themselves, they've given the government in writing that by 4 o'clock, the 25th of this month, if government is not giving them a clear idea to retrieve that container, they're going to go out and retrieve that container themselves. If the ANC government wants to kill them or put them in jail, they said let it be. And I wrote a letter last week to the department after their lawyers, who I'm responsible for the payment, wrote to them. I wrote another letter to them this morning. They've not acknowledged my letter this morning. The 25th is what, next week, Wednesday or Thursday?
Nothing happened.
And if nothing happens, the 26th, as a country, we might face a disaster.
Okay.
3 black lives with a container that went down.
Nothing happened.
I can tell you, if that container, ask any white person, if there was one white person in that container would have been out within a month. There are companies that are willing to take to retrieve that container. Our government is really treating black people as if they are nothing. We've had Marikana, we've had Koza in Alexander.
Ndate Mashaba, let me take this opportunity to thank you. I think we need a second round, you and I. I think the viewers also agree with me. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. We have to deactivate ourselves. Let me thank you, Ndate Mashaba, for coming. And sons and daughters of the revolutionary soil, let me thank you for allowing us behind the iron curtains to invade your homes. Good night. Salute!
The power to defeat coronavirus is in our hands. Play your part by following these 5 basic precautions. Regularly wash your hands with soap and water or sanitizer for at least 20 seconds. Maintain a safe distance of at least 1.5 meters from people around you. Wear a cloth mask at all times when in public. Always cough or sneeze into your elbow or tissue. If you're an employer, screen your employees daily for symptoms of COVID-19.